That courthouse, the fourth one, lasted only 12 or 13 years. It was destroyed by fire. One of the custodians was climbing up to the belfry to wind the clock and dropped a match or a candle or something, and the courthouse, much of it was made of wood, and it burned. A new courthouse then was constructed from 1898 to 1900. And in 1900, this courthouse, the fifth one, was opened. It was designed by architects from Cleveland, Ohio, Lehman and Schmidt. It was built by a couple of local builders, a man named Albert Howard and another named George Clark. And when it opened in 1900, it was considered certainly the most magnificent structure in the state, and some people like to believe in the entire country. It was built at a cost of a little more than $250,000, and that was the late 1800s, 1900. It had the interior was absolutely magnificent, we're told. And there are descriptions of it which exist. Unfortunately, in the 1960s, it was necessary to remodel the courthouse to make the space more efficient, to add more offices, and much of the space inside the courthouse, which made it such an imposing structure, was lost. The Y-shaped staircases which went to the upper floors with marble steps, the ornate railings. There was a rotunda in it originally which was 105 feet tall, almost went to the top of the building. All of that was closed off in the remodeling, so as a result we get a courthouse today which looks very similar on the exterior, but on the interior in no way resembles what we once had.
Bedford, the county seat of Trimble County. Trimble County population, 6,217. Area square miles, 148. Rank, 117th. Trimble County is located in the 4th Congressional District.
The original Trimble County Courthouse, as it was built sometime just after 1836. Trimble County became a county in 1836. The government began to function in 1837. The county is named after Judge Robert Trimble, but this is what the original courthouse, there have been 3, this is what the original one looked like. This is an aerial view of what the town of Bedford looked like about the time that this paper was printed in 1974. There haven't been a lot of changes since that time, although there have been a few new buildings added and 1 or 2 that have been lost to fire even since that time. In the centermost of the picture is the Trimble County Courthouse and the banks and stores and businesses that surround it.
I'm Jack Couch, County Judge Executive.
The courthouse behind us, I take, is the main public structure in the county?
Yes, sir. It was built back in the early 1800s and been remodeled after a fire in 1952. But yes, sir, that's our main county office building.
I'd like to ask the next gentleman here, Perry, if you would introduce yourself to our listening audience.
John, I'm Perry Arnold. I'm an attorney here in Trimble County and city attorney for the city of Bedford.
And I understand that you do occasionally write an article for the local newspaper about historical significance and stories about the county and the area?
That's correct, John. For the Trimble Banner Democrat, I do a column that appears almost weekly on historical things and sometimes humorous things that have happened and sometimes on matters of legal concern to the people.
How did the county seat, Bedford, get its name?
John, there's a little bit of dispute about that, but the two stories are that the two brothers who were named Bell came into this area of Kentucky, and they either named it after the town in Virginia that they came from, Bedford, Virginia, or they named it after an uncle of theirs, Bedford Bell. So depending on which story you want to accept as the correct one, those are the two stories.
What about the county itself of Trimble? How did the county receive its name?
It's named after Judge Robert Trimble, who was a lawyer from down in the Fayette County and Frankfort areas, who was later appointed as a federal judge and served on the United States Supreme Court.
Judge, we came down through your county several years ago, and I think that the previous county judge had been county judge executive for many, many years. What can you tell us about Judge Greenwood, I believe it is?
Mr. Greenwood was tenure here as judge was 24 years. He served the community well. He made a lot of progress during those 24 years. 1978, when we went off of the old system and the county judges became administrative only, I think that freed him up to give more time into the operation and administration of county matters, and he was able, therefore, to help the county out more in that respect.
And I understand he is deceased now.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. He passed away last summer in about May after leaving office here.
I remember him for his contributions that he made to the county, and he was quite an interesting character who wrote a lot of stories, interesting stories about the county. And Perry was showing us a newspaper magazine, sort of tabloid he did on the history of the county, which is quite interesting, that I think our viewers will be most happy to read and look at and learn about the history of the courthouses. Let me ask Perry here, what about the courthouses? Is this the original courthouse? And if not, what happened to some of the previous courthouses?
John, as Judge Couch was saying, this is not the structure that was originally here. This is actually the third one, although some of the structure that's here now apparently has continued through. It was never completely devastated by fire, but the original one was built in the early 1800s, as the judge said. That first one was destroyed by fire, and they rebuilt in 1894, and then that one was destroyed by fire in 1952. And they rebuilt with some of the walls and some of the structure that remained after the fire. And the courthouse we now have has been there since 1952.
What can you tell us about the county jail that's over here? I understand it is over 100 years old also.
Yes, sir. That jail was built in two phases. The bottom part of it was back, I think, around Civil War time. And then it was, I'm not sure what the date on the top part was, in the late 1890s, I believe, somewhere. Perry might be a little more up to date on that than myself. But it has some history to it. As we celebrated our 150th year as a county this year, we were established in 1837. The first physical court met in March of 1837 in a little Methodist church here in the community, therefore forming the first government for the county.
Is the jail used for anything today?
No, sir. It was closed when the jail standards were updated, and a lot of the counties, smaller counties especially, had to close jails down, and now we contract with the neighboring county of Oldham.
But it most certainly makes a nice historical site for tourists to come and visit here in Bedford and Trimble County to see the historic old jail and this old quaint courthouse here. I understand also there's one of those old country Baptist churches like I grew up in here in the county that perhaps is the oldest active Baptist church still in use in the state. Can you tell us a little bit about that, Perry?
John, that's my understanding. Corn Creek Baptist Church, they began meeting in that same building in 1800, as I understand it, and they're still meeting there today. So I think it is the oldest church where they're still meeting in the same building.
You have anything to add to that, Judge?
Well, we have a lot of rich history here, and the heritage here in our community we're proud of, and we welcome anyone that would like to come and just visit the special interest spots around our community and just observe some of the rich history that we do have here.
John, one of the things that was really of historical interest here was the Bedford Springs Hotel. It's no longer available to see. The buildings have been torn down. But it was a resort hotel from the mineral springs that were there in the early 1800s, and it was a site where governors and other dignitaries came from about 1840 until 1851, when a cholera epidemic broke out there and closed the site down, and it never reopened after that time. It was used by the family that owned the grounds until I suppose just recent years for various things, but the buildings are no longer there. But that was one of the things that Trimble County was noted for 150 years or so ago.
I wonder if there were actually springs there that they drawed upon.
Yes, there were. The spring house the remains of the spring house are still there, and they actually drew the spring water from the ground, and people took baths and drank it and saw it as having medicinal purposes.
You know, there seems to be a little movement afoot across the state to bring that back. I read in the papers here not too long ago, about a couple of weeks ago, about Dawson Springs down in western Kentucky, which used to be famous for that also, is now starting, I think, to reproduce their mineral water there from Dawson Springs. Who knows, maybe someday we'll have another motel or hotel here in Trimble County that will use the spring waters for municipal purposes or whatever, and draw some tourism business back here in the county, and get back to the history-making parts of the county. Very interesting to know that that did take place here, and we have some pictures of that showing the size of that building, and it must have been quite an activity center.
Sure was.
Thank you so much for giving us this interview on the history of Trimble County and here in Bedford. It's nice to have been here with you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
I would like to thank the many people who helped make these historic tapes possible. Historians, elected officials, businesses, Store Cable with their equipment, the many other studios across the state, local newspapers, daily newspapers that helped us in this effort. In particular, Miss June Guyman, who traveled some 42,000 miles across the Commonwealth of Kentucky with me, filming these historic tapes. Now we'd like for you to enjoy the history of Kentucky, county by county, as we enjoyed making the history come true for you. Oh, Kentucky, Kentucky County, a place to work and play. Oh, Kentucky, Kentucky County, a place I want to stay. Its far north gate and southern trails came Walker Boone and Kenton too. Kentucky, she is calling, a place of history. Oh, Kentucky, Kentucky County, a place to work and play. Oh, Kentucky, Kentucky County, a place I want to stay.